Imagine a black pyramid, half buried, rising from a sea of ice, not on a faraway moon, but here on Earth. Scientists have photographed dark, pyramid-like shapes in Antarctica. Some call them strange mountains, others whisper of something more. What if those shapes are echoes of lost builders, civilizations older than history itself, preserved under ice for tens of thousands of years? Tonight on Just About Earth, we follow footprints between science, myth, and mystery to ask one quiet, impossible question. Could the frozen edge of our world be hiding the very origins of human civilization? Welcome to Just About Earth. Tonight, we drift into Antarctica, a place most humans will never see. A continent locked in silence and ancient ice. In this gentle, sleep-friendly journey, we're not claiming discoveries. We're exploring possibilities. Together, we'll look at the dark, pyramid-shaped formations scientists have spotted and imagine what stories they could hold. Stay with me, because each layer of this icy world reveals a new mystery waiting quietly beneath. Chapter 1: The First Glimpse. The story begins not with a grand expedition, but with a single photograph. It's a quiet moment captured in the middle of the coldest place on Earth, Antarctica. A land where almost nothing moves, where wind shapes the snow into endless white deserts, and where silence has its own kind of weight. In the early 2000s, satellite images began circling the internet. At first glance, they looked ordinary, just more mountains rising through the ice. But one shape stood out, dark, sharp, triangular, perfectly angled against the snow, like something placed there with intention. It looked too smooth, too precise, too defined to be just another frozen peak. Some people thought it was a camera glitch. Others believed it was a simple mountain catching the light in a strange way. But a few looked closer and noticed the lines, the angles, the symmetry. And suddenly, the image wasn't just a landscape. It was a question. A quiet question that echoed through digital screens around the world. Why does that mountain look like a pyramid? Scientists called it a nunatak, a rocky peak breaking through the ice sheet. But too many who saw that image for the first time, it felt like something more, something older, something waiting. The picture spread, not with panic or excitement, but with wonder. And wonder is powerful. It makes the mind wander into places it normally doesn't go. People began comparing the shape to pyramids in Egypt, in Sudan, in South America, not claiming a connection, just noticing a similarity. It's a familiar pattern in a place no civilization had ever lived, or at least no civilization we know of. More photos surfaced over the years, taken from different angles, different satellites, different seasons. Some showed a structure that looked almost too geometric to ignore. Others blurred into ordinary mountains. Yet the mystery remained, because even in the least clear images, that one dark triangular shape kept appearing like a silent marker cutting through the endless white. Explorers, scientists, and curious minds looked again and again. And every time they saw something slightly different, the angle of the sun, the depth of the shadows, the way the ice curved around it, it was as if the land itself was offering glimpses, but never the full truth. And that is where the fascination began. Not with claims or discoveries, but with a simple human instinct: the desire to understand what we're looking at. In a world mapped by satellites and scanned by sensors, Antarctica still holds places untouched, unseen, and unexplored. That first photograph reminded people of that. It reminded us that even now, there are corners of Earth that keep their secrets well. And so the question grew deeper. If this shape is just a mountain, why does it look unlike any other mountain on the continent? And if it's something else, then what kind of story is buried beneath 2 miles of ancient ice? This small, quiet mystery, one picture, one shape, opened the door to a journey that continues to this day. And as we drift deeper into this frozen world, the next question becomes even more intriguing. If Antarctica can hide a pyramid-shaped shadow for so long, what else might be sleeping beneath the ice? Chapter 2: A Continent of Secrets. Antarctica is not just a place on a map. It is a world of its own, quiet, untouched, and older than any human story ever written. When we look at Antarctica today, we see a frozen desert. But beneath that frozen shell lies a continent with a past far more complex than the white landscape we imagine. For most of Earth's history, Antarctica wasn't cold at all. It was green, alive, a land where forests grew tall and rivers flowed freely. Scientists have found fossils of leaves, wood, insects, even the remains of ancient reptiles that once walked across terrain that now lies trapped beneath 2 miles of ice. This contrast between what Antarctica was and what it has become is what gives the continent its sense of hidden memory. A memory preserved under pressure, under silence, under snow that has been falling for millions of years. And because Antarctica is so isolated, anything hidden beneath its surface could remain untouched for unimaginable spans of time. But this isolation is also what creates mystery. Very few people have ever set foot deep inside the continent. Most of the interior remains unvisited, unphotographed, and unexplored. Even modern satellites, with all their technology, struggle to map what lies beneath the thickest glaciers on Earth. To understand how hidden Antarctica truly is, imagine this. If you placed the tallest skyscrapers, whole cities, even mountain ranges beneath this ice, they would simply disappear, swallowed by frozen layers that move slowly, silently, over millennia. This is a land where nature hides everything, not on purpose, but completely. And that leads us to the unanswered question: how many secrets can a place like this hold? Scientists have drilled deep into the ice and found bubbles of ancient air, tiny pockets showing what Earth's atmosphere looked like hundreds of thousands of years ago. They've discovered lakes sealed beneath the ice for millions of years, untouched by sunlight or surface life. One of these lakes, Lake Vostok, is so perfectly sealed that scientists believe it has its own ecosystem, life forms that have evolved in total isolation far from the world above. If water can survive down there, if life can survive down there, what else might be preserved in the silent dark? But it's not just biology that hides in Antarctica. Under the ice, there are canyons deeper than the Grand Canyon, mountain ranges taller than the Alps, and valleys that no human eye has ever seen. Antarctica's hidden landscape is like another planet, vast, strange, and untouched. This is the continent where Earth keeps its secrets, not because someone hid them, but because the ice protects everything underneath, like a natural vault. And so, when people saw that pyramid-like shape rising from the snow, even if it was only a mountain, the question grew stronger. Because in a place where entire ecosystems, mountains, rivers, and ancient atmospheres can hide unnoticed, is it really impossible to imagine that something else might be waiting there too? The isolation of Antarctica also means something else. History barely touches it. There are no ancient cities, no armies, no empires, no migration routes, no trade networks. Whatever is buried there, natural or not, has been protected from time, war, erosion, civilization, and destruction. Think of Antarctica as Earth's deepest archive, an archive that has never been opened. A library of ice-holding memories older than humankind. And so researchers, historians, and explorers look at the continent with a strange mix of scientific discipline and human curiosity. Because the more we learn about this frozen world, the clearer it becomes. Antarctica is not empty. It is simply unread. But the real mystery lies here. If Antarctica once had forests, rivers, and life, if it was once warm and green, then who or what might have lived there long before the ice came? That question pushes us deeper into the story. Not toward certainty, but toward imagination supported by scientific possibility. And as we move forward, we reach the next step in our journey. One that asks a quiet but powerful question. When the ice hides mountains, lakes, rivers, and entire landscapes, how can we be sure that every pyramid-shaped structure is just rock? Chapter 3. Mountains, or something else. As we drift further into Antarctica's silent heart, we arrive at a question that has quietly followed scientists, explorers, and curious minds for years. When you see a mountain shaped like a pyramid, is it truly just a mountain? On most continents, unusual shapes in nature don't surprise us. Erosion, wind, and time carve landscapes into strange patterns every day. But Antarctica is different. Its ice is thick, its winds brutal, and its rock formations rare. Only a tiny fraction of the land ever peeks through the ice sheet, which means every exposed structure becomes a puzzle. And some of these puzzles take shapes that look uncannily familiar. The so-called Black Pyramids of Antarctica fall into this category. From a distance, especially in satellite images, they appear almost geometric. Smooth sides, sharp ridges, and a triangular peak rising from a blanket of snow. They create the kind of silhouette that makes the mind pause for a moment. Because they do not blend gently into the landscape, they stand apart. Scientists call them nunataks, rocky peaks that stick out from the ice. And many nunataks do have angled sides. But what sets these particular shapes apart is the symmetry, the repetition. The way the shadows fall so perfectly straight, almost as if the rock had been shaped intentionally. Of course, nature can create symmetry. Nature can build beauty without design. Yet when people first saw these formations, they wondered, why do these look so different from the peaks around them? To answer this, geologists studied photos, rock samples, and satellite data. Their conclusion was simple and scientific. These pyramid shapes could easily be the product of natural erosion, sharp ridges formed by freeze and thaw cycles, snowdrifts, and ancient tectonic forces. A mountain does not need human hands to resemble a geometric shape. And this explanation is logical, reasonable, grounded in evidence. But the story doesn't end with logic. Because mystery doesn't disappear just because science offers an explanation. Mystery lives in the gaps, in what we haven't explored yet. And in Antarctica, those gaps are enormous. The black pyramid-like formation most people talk about sits near the Ellsworth Mountains. Its sides, when viewed from certain angles, appear unusually straight, not curved like typical erosion patterns. The peak looks sharply defined, not rounded, not weathered, just precise. And that precision is what sparks the imagination. Not because it proves anything, but because it raises a quiet what if. We must remember, almost all images of these shapes come from satellites far above the Earth. No high-resolution scans, no close-up surveys, no deep studies of the rock, no ground teams verifying what the formation looks like from the surface. In a place where winter can freeze machinery and winds can erase entire camps overnight, many regions are simply unreachable. So we see Antarctica not as it truly is, but as shadows and outlines on a screen. That distance creates space for imagination. Not wild claims, not certainties, just possibilities. Some observers say the structure resembles pyramids found across the world in Egypt, in Mesoamerica, in Sudan, in China. Of course, similarity doesn't imply connection, but it does remind us of something deeper. The human brain recognizes patterns. We look for shapes we understand. And when we see a triangle rising from the ice, our minds instinctively recall the oldest and most iconic human structures we know. So the question becomes less about what the pyramid is, and more about why it feels so strangely familiar. Could it simply be nature echoing patterns found across the planet? Or are there ancient geological processes here that mimic the angles of human architecture? Or in the softest, sleepiest corner of imagination, could the structure be hiding something beneath its frozen base? Something no one has yet discovered. These ponderings are not about proving anything. They are about exploring the space between certainty and curiosity. And in that quiet space, Antarctica invites us to listen, to wonder, to drift into the possibility that the world still holds secrets we have not yet uncovered. Because if this pyramid-like formation is just a mountain, it is one of the most unusual mountains ever shaped by nature. And if it is something more, even just a rare geological phenomenon, then it still holds a story worth exploring. And that brings us to the next question, one that pushes us deeper into this icy riddle. If Antarctica's frozen surface can carve mountains into perfect angles, what ancient history might be locked beneath the ice itself? Chapter 4. Ice that remembers. When we look at Antarctica, we often see only the surface, an endless white desert stretching beyond the horizon. But the true story of this continent does not live on the surface. It lives below it. Layer after layer of frozen time, stacked quietly for millions of years. Like pages in a book that Earth has never allowed anyone to read. Antarctica's ice is not just frozen water. It is memory. It is history. It is a silent archive of everything the planet has witnessed. Imagine holding a glass sphere filled with perfectly preserved air. Now imagine that air is 1 million years old. Scientists have done just that, drilling deep into the ice cores and retrieving bubbles of ancient atmosphere. Inside those microscopic bubbles lies the breath of a world that existed long before humans walked the earth. A world with different temperatures, different climates, different life, all stored in delicate pockets inside the ice. This is what makes Antarctica so extraordinary. No other place on Earth preserves time so gently, so faithfully. Each layer of snow that fell thousands, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands of years ago is still there, pressed into fine, icy sheets. The deeper you go, the older the story becomes. But the most mysterious part isn't the ice itself. It's what the ice is hiding. Beneath this massive frozen shield lies a landscape almost completely unknown. A vast, untouched world that has not felt sunlight in millions of years. A world where mountains rise and fall in total darkness, where rivers once flowed freely across warm plains, where valleys stretch farther than the human eye can measure. Now completely buried under ice, so thick it might as well be another planet. And yet, the ice remembers everything that lies below it, through subtle shifts in temperature, density, and pressure. Scientists can detect hints of what once existed, fossils from ancient forests, particles of volcanic ash, chemical signatures from long-lost liquid water, even traces of microscopic life that lived and died before our species existed. This ability of the ice to preserve life is one of the greatest clues we have. If Antarctica's buried lakes, sealed off from the world for millions of years, can still support microorganisms, what else might the ice have frozen into stillness? The idea is not about lost civilizations. It's about the sheer scale of time, the vastness of what Earth can keep hidden, and the incredible resilience of environments untouched by the modern world. But the ice holds even deeper mysteries, far beneath the surface. Scientists found Lake Vostok, one of the most extraordinary discoveries on Earth. A lake the size of a small country, completely buried under nearly 4 kilometers of solid ice. A lake with its own pressure, its own temperature, and possibly its own isolated forms of life. Life that has evolved in total darkness for millions of years. If something as delicate as bacteria can survive down there, if large, warm lakes can remain hidden under freezing deserts, entire mountain ranges can lie buried for eons. Then is it really impossible for larger structures, natural or otherwise, to be preserved as well? Again, not in a fantastical sense, but in a scientific one. Antarctica shows us that the planet is capable of preserving anything. Stone, ice, organic material, ancient rivers, even the faint traces of ecosystems long forgotten. And this is where the mystery deepens. When researchers examined radar scans of parts of the continent, they found formations beneath the ice that didn't look like natural plateaus or random hills. Some looked surprisingly organized, surprisingly geometric. Not pyramids, nothing that suggests human activity, but patterns that raise questions. Questions about ancient climate, ancient geology, and ancient environments that may have shaped the land in ways we still do not fully understand. Because Antarctica is not a frozen wasteland. It is a frozen memory. A continent-shaped time capsule containing the world as it once was, long before the ice swallowed everything. Think of it this way. If Earth had a place where it stored all its forgotten chapters, all its erased landscapes, all its ancient secrets, Antarctica would be that place. And that brings us to a more intriguing possibility, one that bridges science with imagination. If the ice remembers everything, then what might it be remembering beneath the dark, triangular shapes rising through the snow? Chapter 5 Whispers of Ancient Builders. As we move deeper into this silent, icy world, our journey shifts from what science has uncovered to what humanity has long wondered. Because long before satellites photographed Antarctica's pyramid-shaped peaks, long before explorers reached the frozen continent, people across the world told stories, quiet stories, about civilizations that existed before the ones we know. Stories not of proof, but of possibility. Of worlds erased by time and knowledge buried beneath earth, fire, and ice. These whispers are not claims. They are echoes, fragments of human imagination, preserved in ancient cultures that tried to understand their place in a vast and mysterious world. And in these echoes, we begin to see patterns. Patterns that appear not only in myths, but carved into stone, drawn on pottery, and woven into stories passed down for thousands of years. Across the deserts of Egypt, the pyramids stand like silent guardians. In Sudan's Nubian sands, hundreds more rise, smaller and steeper, as if designed with a different memory. Across the ocean in South America, the pyramids of Cairo and the stepped structures of the Maya stretch toward the sky. Even in Asia, pyramidal mounds dot the ancient landscapes of China and Indonesia. Different cultures, different eras, different worlds, yet a shape that repeats. Of course, this does not mean these cultures shared a single origin. Not at all. Human creativity can lead different civilizations to similar solutions. A pyramid is structurally stable. It defies time, weather, and erosion. It is simple, strong, universal. But it is this universality, this global echo, that makes the human imagination pause when looking at the dark, triangular shapes in Antarctica. Not because they must be connected, but because the pattern feels familiar. And in the soft spaces between knowledge and curiosity, ancient stories begin to breathe. Many cultures speak of civilizations that rose and fell long before recorded history. The Aboriginal peoples of Australia tell stories of dreamtime when ancient beings shaped the land. In India, ancient texts describe ages of humankind stretching millions of years into the past, not literal science, but symbolic cycles of creation and loss. The Greeks wrote about Atlantis, a metaphorical city swallowed by disaster and change. In Egypt, priests spoke of Zep Tepi, the first time a mythical era when the world was different, and the land was shaped by forces modern people could not fully understand. None of these stories are evidence, but they are reminders. Reminders that humans everywhere have always felt that the world is older, deeper, and more mysterious than our history books reveal. And so when people saw the pyramid-like formation in Antarctica for the first time, these ancient whispers stirred again, not as facts, but as questions. If Earth has erased entire forests, lakes, mountains, and ecosystems beneath ice, could it also have erased memories of human cultures we do not yet understand? Again, we aren't looking for answers. We are exploring the feeling behind the question, the same feeling that drove early explorers to cross oceans and astronomers to peer into the care. Curiosity, wonder, the deep human instinct to look beyond what is known. Scientists remind us that Antarctica's shape is geological, natural, formed through wind, temperature, and time. And yet, the mystery remains compelling because we cannot see beneath the ice. We cannot stand beside the structure and touch the rock. We cannot map the deeper layers. We cannot know what lies below it. And where certainty ends, imagination begins softly, carefully, respectfully. Imagine standing at the base of that dark formation, with icy winds brushing against your face, the world silent except for the whisper of snow. The structure rises above you, its angles sharp in the pale light. You touch the stone. It is cold, ancient, weathered by a million winters. You feel not proof, but presence, the presence of deep time. Time that dwarfs humanity, time that stretches far beyond the boundaries of our recorded past. Perhaps that is why these structures draw us in, not because they promise answers, but because they remind us of the vastness of what we still do not know. And so the whisper grows, not of builders or cities or lost kingdoms, but of a deeper truth. That Earth is older, stranger, and more layered than we could ever imagine. Which leads us to the next step in our journey, a chapter where mystery meets geology and imagination blends with science. If these pyramid-like shapes are just mountains, then what lies beneath them, buried under millions of years of silent ice? Chapter 6. The Black Pyramid Shape as our journey continues across the silent, icy surface of Antarctica. We come face to face with the formation that started this entire mystery, the structure many refer to as the Black Pyramid, a shape that stands alone in the snow, dark, sharp, angular, almost too perfect for the chaos of nature, and yet too natural to be claimed as anything else. This formation is not hidden. It's visible from satellite photographs, a triangular peak rising almost symmetrically from the icy plains near the Ellsworth Mountains. Scientists classify it as a nunatak, a rock outcrop breaking through the ice sheet. But the nickname Black Pyramid persists because of how distinctly it rises, how clearly its edges cut against the white world around it. The pyramid has 3 sides exposed above the ice, each one angled sharply and each one dark enough to create a striking silhouette when the sun hits it from the right direction. In some images, the shadows fall so precisely that the formation looks almost geometric. In others, the sides appear smoother than expected for a mountain formed by millions of years of erosion. And to the human eye, that precision feels purposeful, even when we know it isn't meant to be. But the truth is simple. Antarctica's environment is one of the most extreme sculpting machines on Earth. Wind sharper than blades. Ice that expands and contracts with enormous pressure. temperatures that freeze rock until it fractures. Over time, these forces can carve peaks into shapes that appear surprisingly smooth, surprisingly clean, surprisingly intentional. And yet, the Black Pyramid still stands out. Not because it defies nature, but because it challenges our expectations of what nature can create. It is steep, it is unusually symmetrical, and it rises in a place where almost nothing else does. This is why some geologists find it fascinating. Not for mythical reasons, but because Antarctica rarely produces exposed mountains with such defined angles. Most peaks are buried beneath the ice, hidden from view. But this one gets just enough exposure, just enough pressure, just enough wind, and just enough time to shape it into something remarkable. Yet, for all its natural explanations, the mystery lingers. Because the Black Pyramid, viewed from a distance, looks like something familiar, something ancient, something architectural, something human. And when a natural formation imitates human design, even unintentionally, our minds fill in the blanks. Still, the real mystery of the Black Pyramid isn't the rock we can see. It is the vast unknown beneath it. Imagine the formation as the tip of a colossal iceberg, except this iceberg is made of stone. Buried beneath tens of thousands of years of frozen layers. The visible peak could be only a sliver of a much larger structure hidden under the ice. And scientists know very little about the geological formations beneath this region because the ice is simply too thick to study in detail. Radar can scan through ice, yes, but at great depths, signals blur. They bend, they weaken, they return incomplete data. What lies below becomes more of a shadow than a clear shape. This means that beneath the Black Pyramid, there could be a massive mountain range, a volcanic ridge, an ancient valley buried since before humans existed, or geological formations unlike anything we've seen elsewhere. These possibilities are scientific, grounded, and real. And yet, there remains a softer, more imaginative possibility, not a claim. Just a thought. If Antarctica has preserved forests, lakes, rivers, ecosystems, and entire mountain chains beneath its frozen shell, could it also preserve shapes that simply look meaningful, frozen in time long before humans appeared? When we look at the Black Pyramid, we aren't just seeing a mountain. We are seeing a symbol, a reminder that the world still holds places where human eyes have never looked, where human feet have never stepped, and where human understanding has not yet reached. The pyramid-like formation is not evidence of ancient builders. It is evidence of something else entirely. That mystery still exists on Earth. That even in an age of satellites, data, and global mapping, there are shapes and shadows that science hasn't fully explained. Not because they're supernatural, but because we haven't been able to study them up close. And that leads us into the next part of our journey, an exploration of what lies around these shapes. In a region so cold, so remote, and so untouched that it may hold secrets even more intriguing than the pyramid itself. Our next question gently emerges from the ice. If this dark, angular mountain is just one shape rising through the snow, what other hidden giants might still be buried beneath Antarctica's endless white silence? Chapter 7. Hidden beneath the snow. So far, we have seen the surface, the Black Pyramid rising sharply from a sea of ice. We have imagined the history preserved in the frozen layers. But Antarctica is much more than what we can see. Beneath that pristine white surface lies a world almost entirely unknown, a hidden continent of astonishing scale and silence. The ice sheet of Antarctica is enormous. It covers 14 million square kilometers, holding about 90% of the world's fresh water. Its thickness averages over 1.6 kilometers, and in some areas, it reaches more than 4 kilometers. That's more than 2.5 miles of solid frozen time pressing down on everything beneath. And under that ice, the landscape is remarkably complex. Scientists have mapped some of it using radar and satellite technology, revealing hidden mountains, deep valleys, vast plains, and enormous lakes. Some of these formations are taller than the Alps, longer than any canyon we know, and have remained buried for millions of years. Yet, because the ice conceals them, these natural wonders remain almost entirely untouched, invisible to the human eye. One of the most extraordinary discoveries is Lake Vostok, a massive body of liquid water sealed under 4 kilometers of ice, untouched for up to 15 million years. Inside, scientists believe life has persisted in isolation, microorganisms evolving in darkness. In extreme pressure, without contact with the outside world, it is a glimpse into what happens when Earth itself becomes a caretaker of life, holding it in secret, preserving it against time. And Lake Vostok is just one example. Beneath Antarctica's ice, there are dozens of smaller lakes, hidden rivers, and water channels that twist for hundreds of kilometers. There are valleys long buried, mountains entirely covered, and plains where life might have existed in the distant past. Every ice core drilled is a portal into this hidden world, a slow uncovering of a landscape frozen in silence. The landscape beneath the ice is not uniform. It has mountains rising sharply, jagged ridges, and deep depressions that trap water. Some areas show strange anomalies, shapes that appear geometric, straight lines cutting across valleys, formations that seem almost unnatural. Radar scans hint at hidden peaks that could rise hundreds of meters beneath the ice, and valleys that stretch far deeper than the deepest ocean trenches. And this is where imagination quietly merges with science. It is one thing to know that the ice preserves life. It is another to consider that the ice preserves history, not just biological history, but geological and possibly even archaeological history. Structures, if they ever existed, could be entirely preserved beneath the ice. Not because someone deliberately hid them, but because the conditions here are perfect for preservation. The cold, the isolation, the lack of erosion, a natural vault spanning tens of thousands, even millions of years. It's this vast hidden landscape that makes the Black Pyramid even more intriguing. The peak we see could be only the tip of a much larger feature, a mountain, a plateau, or something else entirely. And surrounding it may lie more formations, hidden rivers, and valleys, shaping a landscape we can only glimpse with technology. Every radar ping, every satellite pass, every ice core gives us hints, shadows of what lies beneath, but never the full picture. This hidden world challenges us. It asks us to wonder, If Earth can conceal entire mountain ranges and liquid lakes beneath 2 miles of ice, what other secrets might still sleep, untouched, in silence? And it reminds us of something profound. Antarctica is a living archive. Its ice preserves the memory of the planet in a way few other places can. And in that archive, every structure, every shape, every anomaly becomes a question. Not a mystery to solve immediately, but a possibility to explore. Which brings us to the next chapter, a gentle journey into the ancient possibilities of this frozen landscape. Because if ice can preserve life, water, and entire mountain ranges, could it also preserve traces of the first civilizations long erased by time? What might lie under the ice that we are not yet ready to see? Chapter 8. If Civilizations Came Before Us. As we peer beneath the ice and into Antarctica's hidden landscapes, a quiet, almost impossible question emerges. What if humans were not the first to build, explore, and shape the world? It's not a question aimed at claiming proof. It is a question that drifts softly between imagination, science, and possibility. Because if we have learned anything from this frozen continent, it is that Earth keeps its secrets well, and often for millions of years. Think about it. Antarctica was once green and warm, a land of forests, rivers, and lakes. The fossil record confirms it. Millions of years ago, the land was alive with creatures large and small. Conditions were entirely different from today's frozen deserts. It was habitable. It was fertile. Could life, intelligent or otherwise, have existed there long before humans arrived on the scene? Could beings capable of building structures have once roamed this continent, leaving behind traces now buried beneath miles of ice? Geologists tell us that much of the continent has been shaped by ice for tens of millions of years. Yet the Earth itself is patient. Mountains form slowly. Rivers carve their paths. And landscapes transform over geological timespans. Anything constructed before the ice arrived would now be frozen, hidden, possibly preserved in ways we cannot yet imagine. Radar scans hint at unusual features beneath the ice: linear ridges, symmetrical shapes, and formations that don't fit typical erosion patterns. None of these are confirmations of ancient civilizations. None are proof of anything human. But the patterns are intriguing enough to make a thoughtful mind pause, to wonder quietly, to ask softly, what could survive when the world above has long forgotten? History reminds us that human memory is short compared to geological time. Entire civilizations, cities, and cultures have vanished within a few thousand years, sometimes leaving barely a trace. So imagine a world that was erased tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of years ago. A civilization that existed in Antarctica during a time when the climate was warm, before the ice came to claim the land. Any evidence of it could now lie perfectly preserved, frozen in silence, waiting for rediscovery. We see hints of lost knowledge elsewhere. Ancient structures built with precision. Civilizations that understood astronomy, mathematics, and engineering far beyond what we often give them credit for. Some were destroyed by natural disasters, others faded slowly into myth. Could Antarctica's ice contain similar traces? It is easy to dismiss such thoughts. They border on imagination. And yet the scientific perspective allows us to explore them cautiously. If the ice can preserve life, water, mountains, and lakes, why couldn't it also preserve remnants of something intelligent? Something forgotten, unseen, and untouched for tens of thousands of years. This is not speculation meant to mislead. It is a meditation on possibility. A reminder that the Earth is vast, ancient, and far more complex than the few thousand years of recorded human history we often focus on. And the Black Pyramid, standing quietly above the snow, serves as a symbol of this idea. A shape that invites reflection, curiosity, and the gentle exploration of questions larger than ourselves. If we imagine the continent as a time capsule, Antarctica holds not just ice, but the memory of Earth's distant past. Every hidden valley, every buried river, every radar-detected anomaly becomes a potential piece of the puzzle. And in that frozen silence, the mind drifts further. Could civilizations have existed before us, leaving only traces now buried beneath ice sheets so thick, so unyielding, that even today's most advanced technology can only hint at what lies below? The answer remains unknown. But the question itself is enough to carry us further, deeper into Antarctica's frozen mysteries. And as we continue our journey, we begin to explore the human fascination with these structures. Why? Even when evidence is scarce, shapes like the Black Pyramid capture our imagination and inspire centuries of stories. What is it about perfect angles and silent peaks that makes us pause, wonder, and dream? Chapter 9. The Silent Watchers of the South. As we drift deeper into Antarctica's icy expanse, another layer of mystery emerges, not in the rocks, ice, or hidden valleys, but in the very presence of the continent itself. Antarctica is a silent watcher. It observes without movement. It preserves without interference. And it reminds us of how small we are in the grand story of the Earth. This continent has no permanent human inhabitants. No cities, no roads, no farms. The only humans present are scientists and explorers, and even they remain temporary, visiting only small regions for short periods of time. Everything else, the ice, the mountains, the hidden lakes, the pyramid-shaped peaks, exists on its own terms. Silent, patient, unmoving, watching. The silence of Antarctica is more than the absence of noise. It is the presence of time itself. Layers of ice store millennia. Snowfall compresses ancient memories into solid sheets. Glaciers move slowly, reshaping landscapes in ways so gradual we hardly perceive them. It is a continent that does not rush. And in this slowness, it preserves everything, not just evidence of the past, but a sense of scale far beyond human understanding. And yet, humans are drawn to it. Because in its silence, we sense questions we cannot answer. We imagine stories we may never prove. We see shapes, the Black Pyramid, other nunnaks, subtle ridges in the snow, and wonder if Earth has held secrets so long that only the patient ice can guard them. Researchers from around the world have braved Antarctica's cold to study its mysteries. They measure ice thickness, map subglacial lakes, analyze core samples. They track climate records spanning hundreds of thousands of years. Yet even with all the technology and data at their fingertips, the continent resists full comprehension. It remains quiet, enigmatic, and unknowable in many ways. Antarctica's hidden creatures, microorganisms thriving in lakes under kilometers of ice. Hardy seals resting on the surface, penguins navigating the cold currents are witnesses to a world few humans see. They live according to the rhythms of ice and water, untouched by cities, wars, or civilizations. In a way, they are custodians of the continent, maintaining the balance while the rest of the world spins far away. This combination of isolation, preservation, and quiet observation gives Antarctica a unique role on our planet. It is both a guardian and a storyteller. It does not speak with words. It does not reveal with urgency. It simply exists, holding fragments of Earth's past, patiently waiting for those who come with respect, curiosity, and patience. And so, when the Black Pyramid and other mysterious formations appear to our eyes, it is not just a mountain we see. It is a sentinel. A reminder that some of Earth's greatest stories are hidden, slow to reveal themselves, and protected by silence. The fascination with these shapes is understandable, because humans have always been drawn to patterns, structures, and symbols. We see mountains as guardians, pyramids as monuments, and hidden peaks as messages from the past. Even if the formation is purely natural, it inspires imagination, a soft, respectful curiosity about what lies beneath the ice and what the Earth has kept for so long. And here, in the most remote corners of the world, we begin to understand something profound. Antarctica is not a place that can be fully conquered or understood. It is a teacher of patience, observation, and wonder. It reminds us that some mysteries are preserved for those who are willing to see slowly, to question gently, and to imagine without forcing certainty. And so, as we prepare to move to the final chapter of our exploration, one question hovers softly above the frozen landscape. If Antarctica watches silently, guarding mountains, lakes, and hidden valleys, what secrets might it still hold about the origins of life, history, and perhaps civilizations we have yet to imagine? Chapter 10. The final question, and now, we reach the edge of our journey, the point where curiosity meets reflection, where science, imagination, and wonder converge. Antarctica stretches before us, vast, white, silent. The Black Pyramid rises from the snow, its sharp angles casting long shadows across frozen plains. Beneath the ice, entire landscapes remain hidden. Mountains, valleys, lakes, rivers preserved for millennia. And through it all, the continent waits, patient, unmoving, guarding its ancient secrets. We have imagined possibilities. We have explored what science tells us. Ice cores that hold ancient atmospheres. Lakes sealed for millions of years. Mountains buried under thick ice. We have considered what human curiosity brings. Myths of lost civilizations, stories of forgotten builders, echoes of patterns repeated across the world. And we have walked gently through the silent expanses, aware that some mysteries do not need immediate answers. Perhaps the greatest lesson of Antarctica is humility. The world is far older than us. It holds secrets we may never fully know, and yet it invites us to wonder. If the Black Pyramid is simply a mountain, it is still extraordinary. Its presence reminds us of the patience of nature, the sculpting power of ice, and the vastness of a planet that can create beauty and mystery without intention. If it hints at something deeper, hidden beneath layers of ice and time, then it reminds us that Earth may have stories older than humanity itself, stories that we are only beginning to imagine. And that is the quiet magic of this frozen continent. It preserves, it guards, it inspires. It teaches us that curiosity is not about finding all the answers, but about exploring gently, thinking deeply, and letting the mind wander through possibilities. So as we leave the Black Pyramid and Antarctica's silent expanses behind, we carry with us not certainty, but wonder. Not proof, but imagination. Not final answers, but endless questions. The final question remains: if Earth has kept its secrets so carefully in ice, rock, and time, what might we one day discover beneath Antarctica's white silence? And perhaps the true journey is not in the answers we find, but in the questions we continue to ask. If you enjoyed drifting with us across this frozen, mysterious continent and exploring the quiet wonders of Antarctica, make sure to join our journey on Just About Earth. Subscribe to the channel, leave a comment sharing what fascinated you the most, and like the video to support more explorations like this, because the world is full of mysteries, and together we have only begun to uncover them.